leave was my towel rather than get any kitchen roll. If you're on, come and say hi. It's so lovely to be back. I'm just telling everyone about Jade's misfortune and the fact she's just been drying things with a towel.
Oh yeah, you did have a full cup, but
she spilled half of my cup, basically. So she's in trouble again. We're both here, snuggled up in our hoodies like we said we would be in our newsletter. I've basically not taken mine off since I got it. It's literally the best thing ever. I'm so happy. Perfect. So we've got such a boring live topic today. Where's that piece? We've got such a boring live topic today. I'm going to try and make it not boring, but it is. But it's also really necessary if you don't want to get fined. And even it's a bit of a dodgy ground here. Morning, Jade. It's always so confusing when there's two Jades. You okay? You had a cracking weekend, didn't you? I think Jade sold out at a fair that she went to. It looked ace. Right, GDPR, where do I start? So the idea of GDPR is to look after your customers, to ensure that they're not getting spammed, to ensure that you are doing the best by them and that you're being honest and transparent with them, which is kind of the whole basis for all of this stuff. There's some really boring stuff I'm going to tell you. I've just got to apologise because it's just not interesting. Wow. So Jade bakes cakes and tray bakes and things, if you didn't know. One of the best things she ever made me was this cream egg Scotch egg. It was literally a cream egg wrapped in a brownie. It was amazing. That's so good. Well done. Get baking again for your next one, I guess. So GDPR is about the Data Protection Act, which is a piece of UK legislation that's designed to protect the privacy of personal data. So this is very much of individuals' personal data, not of a company's personal data. So this is about individuals that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. So in essence, the law is there to give people, citizens and residents, control or more control over their personal data, which means that everybody's got a right to find out what data is being held about them. And it was designed to simplify the regulations for businesses, for specifically small businesses as well, to help them protect personal data and to make sure that the information used is lawful, fair and transparent. You're using it in a lawful and fair way. Your business must comply with GDPR if you are taking information if you're processing any personal data of a customer's, if you're based in the UK or the EU, or if you sell to customers in the UK or the EU. So basically, that's all of us in this group, pretty much. We must comply with GDPR. Now, really, really boring bits. The GDPR law is kind of governed by these 7 key principles. However, I'm going to try not to even talk about these. I was going to, but they're really, really boring. So I'm going to kind of tell you in a nutshell what you need to do. So basically, number 1, the first thing you need to do is register with the Information Commissioner's Office. So if you take personal data from people and you store it somewhere, so this is as simple as people sending you emails, potentially, putting people on your email list so that you can send them promotional things, which almost all of us should be doing if we're not. If you're using cookies on your website to track people, potentially. If you have staff or employees whose personal details you're keeping, if you've asked people for their birthdays so you can send them a birthday treat, any kind of personal data that you are keeping, such as their name, address, email, if you're keeping their email, if you're keeping their bank details, even if it's stored on your website so that they can just repeat purchase easily, photos, if you are tracking their insights so you can see where they've gone. So if you're using Facebook Pixel, or you are using something like Monster Insights on your website so you can see where people are, so you're getting their IP addresses, or if you're collecting any sensitive details, so things like health details, religious data, things like that, you must comply with GDPR regulations. All right, so really loosely, so bear in mind, this is a training, this is not a legal grounding for which you can say you are GDPR compliant. This is me sort of telling you, you need to know about this stuff and you need to look at it. The first thing to do is if you go to the Information Commission's Office's website, Information Commission Officers, the ICO's website, they have a little quiz that you can go through that basically tells you if you need to worry about this stuff. Really, really simply, if you should already know if you're collecting their details, even if they're handwritten and you're storing them, if you're collecting their data, you need to be complying. And the Information Commissioner's Office charge you a yearly fee to say that you're complying. So it's 40 quid, it's 35 if you pay by direct debit, generally for most of the businesses in here. There are other businesses where it will be more. If you have CCTV, that can make a difference. But yeah, you have to register with the Information Commissioner's Offices and pay a yearly subscription to say that you do this stuff. So number one, go make sure you're doing that. I literally just got my letter to renew mine for this year, which was just perfectly divinely timed by the looks of it. So by doing that, you're saying you're a data controller and you're responsible for processing this stuff and holding it. Now, how GDPR works is it's based very much on consent. And this means that you are responsible for telling people exactly what their data is being used for and ensuring you are only using it for the purposes of which you've said. So, for example, if you sign up for a newsletter that says it will send you a weekly newsletter, on the box where you sign up, it says, we will use this data to send you a weekly newsletter full of our offers and hints and tips. Technically, that is all they can send you. They cannot send you anything extra, any extra things outside of the weekly newsletter if they have specified weekly newsletter and that's what you've signed up for. Now, it's really hard, obviously, to prove a lot of this stuff. It's really hard to know where people joined your newsletter. It's really hard to keep track on your list, your email list, if you've changed what you're doing along the way. But it's the law, technically, is that if you have people that have signed up for your weekly newsletter, you cannot just move them over onto something else without getting their consent again. And the consent thing is an interesting issue. So say you're at a networking meeting and you are talking to someone and they give you consent to email them a proposal or something very specific that you were talking to them about. They give you verbal consent, that's accepted. However, the verbal consent, again, must specify what you are allowed to send them. That doesn't mean then you can add them onto your email list. If you go to a networking event and collect business cards, you cannot put all those email addresses onto your email list and send them an email. It might be acceptable to send them almost a personal individual email to reintroduce yourself, but you cannot subscribe them to something. You cannot email them again if they haven't emailed back and kind of shown that they're willing to engage in a conversation like that. That's not allowed. And you will see some big companies entirely flaunting this, and I see it a lot. Doesn't mean it's okay. Doesn't mean you should do it. You can absolutely get a fine. If people report your emails as spam, you can be fined. You won't if just an odd random person reports it. I get a couple who report mine as spam that have very clearly signed up for it, and I can see on my email list where they signed up. That's fine. Don't stress about it. But if you've got a lot of spam complaints, if you buy an email list, for example, you will get a lot of spam complaints. You can get fined, and it happens. It definitely happens. So consent is a really, really big part of GDPR. You have to be clear. You have to be explicit as to your purpose of it. When I do my live trainings at Lions Green, we have kind of a big slide on this, and I show some opt-in boxes that are interesting how they're going about getting consent. So, for example, there's a specific one from Red Bull that offer a £10 discount voucher if you sign up to their newsletter. But the tick box that you have to tick to get the discount voucher also specifically says you will be signed up for regular newsletters, mailings, offers, discounts, the £10 voucher, and some other stuff. But you have to tick this box to say you agree to get all of that to get the voucher. That's a really, really clever way around the consent thing, because you are opting in. They're forcing you to do it, technically, if you want the voucher. but that is a tick box that you have to tick to get this. It's not legal to have tick boxes pre-checked. The customer must check them themselves. That's a really, again, an important part of this, and a tricky one. So, for example, on some of my memberships, if you don't tick that box, I literally can't send you your login instructions for the membership. And that's a really weird thing to be part of it, because the login instructions come from an automated email that triggers by you joining the list. But if you don't tick the box, you don't join the list to trigger the email. So I have to be really, really explicit in saying, if you want to join my membership, you have to tick this box. This will add you to this membership's mailing list. But if you want to log in, basically, you've got to tick this box. And interestingly, not everyone still does. So they don't get the login details, then they have to message me, and it all goes into a bit of a thing. But consent is the overriding factor, basically, if you got kind of investigated for any kind of GDPR breach. The next part is security. Are you keeping your customers' details as secure as you possibly can? Now, lots of places, lots of online software looks after this for you. So lots of the mailing software has its own security built in. So you're kind of not responsible for the security of the email addresses because the company is, because you're kind of paying the company to do that. But if you've got handwritten files, they've got to be locked away. You are entirely in charge of that from a GDPR perspective. So if you accidentally leave something out and another client sees it, you're in breach of GDPR. That whole idea about security. I went to parents' evening at school the other day, and the teacher there had kind of the slips of paper with bits about each student on, and they were very careful to ensure they were all upside down except the one that they were reading. Because if I can see anything about that pupil, and it happens by accident, if I can see any information, it's a breach of GDPR. And it really is extremely tight around what's okay and what's not. So your security measures are really important. You should have security policies about like how you look after that. Now, most small businesses don't. You've got a lot better time, a lot better stuff to spend your time on. As a data controller registered with the Information Commission's Office, there's kind of stuff you are technically supposed to have in place and written down in a policy. I probably have one from a while ago when I very first registered with them that I should update now and have a look at and check it's still valid, because lots of my stuff is now like securely stored online. So if you're storing client details online, is it password protected? Is it encrypted? Could other people get to it? The tricky bit that I'm always working with GDPR is the likelihood of you getting into trouble if you're well-intentioned and do your best is so minimal. But that you still have to do this by law. You're walking that line of doing what you can do. And the Information Commission's Office, when all this came in, sort of said they understand the challenges small businesses are facing. They are trying to keep it as simple as they can for small businesses, and they are far more likely to come into your business and work with you on it than to just chuck you a fine immediately, unless it is obvious you've bought an email list or something like that and you are cold calling people who have not given you consent. That's like the big thing. But the whole consent thing is tricky because verbal consent counts and you can't prove that. Another thing you need to do under GDPR is meet access requests. So if someone requests to know what information you have on them, you have to provide it. Now, technically, you can charge them to provide this. Most companies won't, but you can charge them to provide this. Stuff like this should be written in your privacy policy. So on my website, there's a bit in there about that. But you must supply them any information that you are keeping on them if it's requested. If you have a data breach, you should report this to the ICO within 72 hours. There should be a process for reporting. It depends how big your company is as to where that goes. If I felt like there had been a breach, if my computer got hacked, etc., it's my responsibility to report it within 72 hours. You must make sure that your kind of suppliers and contractors are also covered, that they understand their obligations under GDPR and that they're compliant with it. That onus is on you to ensure that they are. Again, really tricky lines to walk through. Most big businesses, you don't need to worry about that. They really do have this in place because they are up for bigger fines. And you should regularly review your privacy policies. You should be making sure that you are not keeping data for longer than necessary. And that's, again, an important part. So some of it is legal data. Some of it you might have to keep. So like client notes for me, my governing body says I need to keep them for 7 years. There are things that you have to keep after that. They should be destroyed. We should not be keeping data longer than we need to. And we should not be using it for any purpose other than that which was consented for in the first place. Does that all make sense? I'll just check if I've got any other notes of anything that I missed. So the 7 key principles are lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. So things like this, reasons for processing data can include things like the user said you can. They've said you can put them on your email list, or you need it to fulfill a contract or a legal obligation. So like if you're taking a mortgage, you would expect that the financial advisor or the mortgage company would take a lot of information from you. They need that to fulfill that legal obligation. You can also collect it, this won't really apply, if it's a public task done in public interest. And you can collect data to kind of fulfill that. I can't think of many reasons why you need to do that. So that first principle, lawfulness, fairness, transparency. Transparency is kind of linked to fairness, being clear, open, and honest with data subjects about who you are, what you're using their information for. Okay. The second principle is purpose limitation. So you must only collect this for the purpose in which you said you were going to collect it for. If you want to use it for a new purpose, you have to get new consent for it. Data minimization. So you must only collect what you need to complete your purposes. So if I am getting people on my email list, all I need is their name and their email address. I can ask for things like birthdays, so I can send them birthday reminders. I can ask for phone numbers, but I should not be making it mandatory that they give it me if it is not needed. That's important. Accuracy, you're supposed to check that this data is accurate. So if you're getting bounced email addresses, etc., they should be unsubscribed from your list if they are regularly bouncing because they're clearly not accurate. You shouldn't be keeping data that is not. I've covered data retention periods, so storage limitation. You should keep it for the shortest amount of time that you possibly can for your purposes. Integrity and confidentiality, encrypted, password protected, secure, and non-visible. So again, if I can't have client notes out here when I've got another client coming in or when Jade's coming in, Jade should not see any of my client stuff. That's dead important. And then accountability is the last kind of principle. Documentation that shows why you've collected information, what for. Like I said, lots of your service providers will do that for you. Your email software will do a lot of things like that for you. But you're accountable to check that you were asking for the right consent and things in the first place. All right. I hope that helps. It's not intended to scare you. Basically, your takeaways from this should be, you should be registered with the Information Commissioner's Office if you are processing personal data of any kind. Dead important that you do that. And then using your common sense. And a big part of that is just take the data that you need, keep it safe and secure, don't let anyone else see it. Make sure you are very explicit in what you're using the data for and why, and that you don't use it for anything that you didn't say you were going to use it for. That's it. Really. Okay, any questions? Pop them in. If you've got any questions you're looking on replay, put those in as well. Hashtag replay if you're watching it. Loads of information can be found on it at the Information Commissioner's Office. I found it really hard to say. I think it's ico.org maybe, but have a Google, you'll find it. It's not there to scare you. It's there to keep people like us safe. So when you're signed up to an email list, there is nothing more annoying. Also, interestingly, this does not apply if you're emailing or contacting businesses. You are allowed to keep business information without it being a breach of GDPR, providing it's not an individual's name that's tied to it. So you can send information to a company. It's not going to be best practice to do this. Like realistically, they're going to unsubscribe and kind of block you. But this only applies to individuals. So you can contact businesses with no technical repercussions, but you cannot contact a specific person within a business. This is all designed to keep us safe. So yeah, how much stuff I unsubscribed for that I know I didn't subscribe for, how much stuff I've unsubscribed for who I haven't heard from for 2 years and then come back up. Normal. We know what business is like, but they must have the option. That's another huge part of this, actually. They must have the option to unsubscribe and to remove themselves. Very important, especially in emails. But they can contact you and ask that you remove their information as well, providing you have the kind of paper trail to back that up. You must follow those instructions. Right, I've bored myself to tears now. We're working on some really, really exciting things today with lots of colourful bits in. We're finalising strategy day, which I think is entirely sold out. I've just got to double check a couple of little bits. So we're sorting that out for January. Today's really exciting. I've got another Facebook Live to do on mental health and anxiety in another group. Yeah, it's a great Monday. All right. Have a fab week, everyone. If I can help with anything business-wise, as always, just whack a post in the group and I will answer all the questions. All right, ladies, have a great week. I'll see you next Monday for something else I have no idea what. Hang on. Google Search Console and Google Business Profile. Ooh, next week's good. If you don't have your Google Business Profile and stuff set up yet, it's a really, really good one. And Google Search Console, if you've got a website, is essential to know about. Ooh, I like next week's. I'm glad on the back of this. All right, have a great week and I will see you all next week. Bye.